Okay, so thank you so much to all of our Fort Block military spouses and veterans and our partners who are joining us today. We are really, really excited to have this team in front of us to talk about not the basics of LinkedIn, but really how to take your LinkedIn profile and what you put out there and help to move yourself from a candidate to a competitive candidate. So I'm very, very thrilled to be joined by three of our wonderful partners. Harper Shook is with us, and Harper is an Air Force veteran and military spouse. She is currently an HR business partner with LinkedIn, and Harper actually took part of one of our first military spouse pilot programs. So we're thrilled that she's here, and even more thrilled that she's with LinkedIn, a fabulous organization. Corey Boatwright is with us, and Corey is an Air Force veteran also, if I'm not mistaken, military and veterans partnership manager. Harper, just so you know, will kind of walk us through her story of how she kind of made her pivot to LinkedIn and a little bit about what she does at LinkedIn. Corey is going to talk more about, he's going to show us the LinkedIn Recruiter platform, how to optimize your profile on LinkedIn, and then also some in-mail tactics. And then we also have with us one of our fabulous Fort Block instructors, Santiago Leon, who is with us from the San Diego area. Not only has Santiago been with us as a Fort Block instructor for 4 or 5 years, maybe at least 5. 4. Okay. Santiago is also an Army veteran and works for Wounded Warrior Project as a Warriors to Work senior specialist, although I think he's probably manager or director by now. Who knows? So I think what I'd like to do, Harper, is just kind of begin with you and just ask really about, tell us a little bit more about we'll start with even what you do at LinkedIn. And then if you want to kind of roll that into how you got to LinkedIn, that would be fabulous.
Sure. Thank you so much, Lisa, Corey, Santiago, Gretchen. Gosh, okay, so I am an HR business partner, and what that means is I actually support a certain segment of the business in LinkedIn. I am like their HR go-to person. So whatever they need help with, we do have specialists who work in different parts of HR, but I'm kind of their point person. So that's what I do. And right now I support the customer success and insights team on LinkedIn.
So tell us what that means, customer success and insights.
So customer success, they are the post-sales group. So when LinkedIn sells to different people out of LinkedIn, and they sell software, they sell services or whatever they're selling. So after somebody buys it, they actually need that support afterwards. So they need that, they need people helping them through if they have any issues. So what the folks that I support, that they do is they do the post sales. So they're not the sellers, but they are the ones to do the support after we've sold.
Wonderful. And tell us, or just talk a little bit about your pivot to LinkedIn. So a little bit about your story, because I know you made a huge pivot to get where you are today. So just a little bit about your story. And then I think what I'll do, if it's okay with you and Corey, is I'll turn it over to the two of you to really have more of a discussion, and I'll take myself off camera to just talk about, LinkedIn and how they're also supporting veterans and military spouses who are working for the company.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, I have a longer story. So I was active duty Air Force for almost 12 years, and different things. I decided that I was going to separate. One of which was that my now husband is Army, and Air Force, Army, never the two shall meet. So we decided, because my commitment was running out, we decided that I was going to get out, even though he offered, and I was like, we don't have time to make this choice. So I was the one who did that. And it was interesting because I went from being active duty to being a military spouse. And I think that's where I found that, I really understood being on the other side. And I really understood how hard it is to find employment. I mean, I went from Monterey, California, where I was, to Fort Hood, where, if anybody's been to Fort Hood, I don't know if anybody here is Army, but there is nothing in Fort Hood in terms of employment. There is nothing unless you're like medical or you work for the Army. There's nothing out there. So it was very difficult. I was unemployed for a number of months after, yes, Jason, after active duty. And it was like, it was hard. And I didn't really get a chance to transition like most people do, because the decision that I made, it was in a 3-month window between 2 different schools in Monterey. And I only had that small amount of time to kind of make that decision, and I did. And so I couldn't really transition. A lot of the programs that were offered to me were, or that were offered, I would say, to veterans, were things that you had to take your terminal leave to do. And there was really no way for me to do that because I was in student status. I was in a class and I wanted to finish the class and graduate. So I said, I can't do that. And then also I was a single parent at the time. And even if I had all that time, my kid was still going to school, and I couldn't just up and leave him for 4 weeks or whatever it is to go somewhere else, to go to a transition program. So everything was like last minute. I didn't really get a good transition. And somehow I went to some veteran job fair at the Fort Hood area, and I networked, and the new location of a company, they needed an HR person there, and I got hired somehow. I don't really know. But like a lot of veterans say, you don't always stay with your first job. And it wasn't just because we moved, but what I told Corey the other day, I was like, sometimes you have to kiss a few frogs. That was my frog. It was a very toxic environment. I did learn some HR. I did get, that kind of credibility of being out in the corporate world, but it was not for me. And it was actually a lot more simplistic than what I had done in the Air Force. So I was kind of surprised by that. It wasn't very challenging. So anyway, we ended up then going to Fort Sill, which was lovely, but there's nothing there. I mean, even worse than Fort Hood, there's nothing there. And so I had a really hard time. And in the whole 2 years we were there, I never once found an advertisement, an opening, somebody who even knew of an HR job open. So I ended up going back on my old Air Force, experience. And I applied for a protocol job working in the protocol office at Fort Sill, and got that. And it was low paying and it had nothing to do with HR, but wow, I was employed, and that's all that really mattered. And I think the good part about being there, though, was that in the meantime, because I wouldn't have some high, hard job that was just crazy busy, and then the pandemic hit. So it really gave me time to kind of focus on that transition that I never really got. Jason, he's actually acquisitions. He was ADA. But yeah, it was just a really good time where I could begin to really focus on the things that I'd never done before. So one of the things, I started using LinkedIn more, and I was telling Corey, I wasn't really a participant. I wasn't really a creator on LinkedIn, but I made sure that I was kind of an active observer. I started, joining veterans groups and started learning, who are the key influencers in the veteran world. And it was interesting. And I saw what people were talking about. And I joined also military spouse groups, because for me, this was kind of a first, going into this world and seeing what other military spouses were doing for employment. I also went on to Facebook and started joining some HR groups. And that was good for me because I could understand, okay, what are they talking about in the industry? What are the relevant terms? All the things that I did were the same, but they were just, the terms were different. Kind of like, if you're military, if you're active duty and you go in for the first time and you're like, I don't get any of this. And so, and it's not that you don't get it because, there's something
different language. It's different language.
It's like a different, right. It's like a different language. Exactly, Lisa. Thank you. So I learned, and I just sat and I did a lot of observation during that time when I was in my protocol job. And one of the most effective things that I think that I did also was I did a lot of exploration. I did a lot of self-exploration, but I also explored the industry. I explored, talking to people. And so there was a very good, or there is a very good organization out there called Veterati, and I can't say enough good things about it. And for those of you who don't know, Veterati is like speed dating, but it's speed networking. And it's really cool because there are so many people on the platform. You just sign up and you can talk to people who are veterans. And a lot of people are not veterans, so they have that perspective too. But you can talk to a bunch of people, thank you, Santiago, in the industry who I made sure that I targeted people from all walks of life, all industries. I targeted tech, I targeted defense, I targeted, little, this is our business in Iowa kind of thing. And I wanted to make sure that I talked to veterans, non-veterans. I wanted to find out, what were the paths into getting into HR? What were people's opinions? How did they get there? What was their advice to me? And I made sure that I talked to different people so I could get all sorts of different advice. I could learn, how did they get there? And what I did learn was that there are so many paths to getting into, whatever industry you're going to, and that it's not going to be the same for everybody. And everybody has their own opinion, which is great. But what I really liked about that was that I could do it. It was like 1-hour sessions. There were some weeks I was doing it up to 3 times a week, just knocking out these calls. There were some people I had multiple calls with because I really clicked with them and I really wanted their opinion on certain things. I just thought that for me, exploring what was going on in the industry not only helped me understand the language, but helped me understand, okay, how can I translate what I've done in the military to what's going on in the corporate world? So I did receive some bad information also in those calls, and I'll give you a couple examples. You have to kind of learn how to wade through those. So one of the bad pieces of advice I received was, and this is a very common, I think, piece of advice that a lot of veterans give in the transition space, and that is HR in the military is nothing like HR in the corporate world. And I can say not only is that inaccurate, but it's very destructive, and it undermined my own transition. And I'm going to explain to you why for a number of reasons. So what we do in the military, yes, it is a different industry, absolutely 100%. That I will give somebody. But if somebody tells you that somehow what you have done does not apply in the corporate world, that is totally wrong. For HR specifically, I was told that, it doesn't even apply. You should start at the bottom, start as a recruiter. You're never gonna, don't expect to be high up. And I didn't expect to be high up. Like I was very, I had no illusions of, oh, I'm going to start at like director level or whatever. It didn't matter how long I'd been in the military. It didn't matter how many people, I supervised, didn't matter. And I get that. And I didn't really care. I just wanted my foot in the door. But people were telling me, oh, you should apply to be a TAP counselor. That's also really bad because guess what? I was still in transition myself. How would I be able to advise people on what to do? Oh, you should be a recruiter. I'd never done recruiting. I wasn't a recruiter in the military. I did HR. And so it was just really, really terrible advice. And then somebody also said to me, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard this, oh, you should go get your PMP. Like how many people have said to you, you should get your PMP, right? Because everybody in the military, you're all qualified for your PMP. So I said, okay. And I started looking into it. And I talked to a guy who instructs the PMP. And as we were talking, he was like, well, it's not impossible. But I realized, I was like, A, that's not what I want to do. B, I'm totally not qualified to do that. So lesson learned when you do talk to people, make sure that, and you have to talk to a lot of people, but make sure that the advice they're giving you is accurate, because I found that I was really, I was undershooting myself, I guess, or undershooting for jobs, especially in the HR realm. And it slowed down my transition. And I think also that's why I wasn't getting any bites, because my resume was like not matching up to these jobs and it was weird. So that was that.
But what's interesting from what you just said is you said originally you have to kiss a few frogs, like when you're kind of in that transition and figuring out your next move in terms of employment. Yes. But you also have to kiss a few frogs when you're networking. I mean, it's really what you've also just talked about is the breadth of your network. And, I don't know if it was comfortable for you in the beginning to reach out to all of these different people in all of these different industries, but no. It's like the more you practice it and the more you, just kind of figure out what your questions are, your story, the easier it becomes. But then the more information you're getting from more people.
Absolutely.
You kissed a lot of frogs.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I would say that I hope, what I'm saying here, I know for some of you, it may not apply. I mean, maybe you're going back into the defense industry, maybe you're going to work for the military or for a contractor, and that's great. But, you know, for somebody like me, I didn't really have a lot of those opportunities. And again, also working in HR on the government side was very hard to break into for some reason, even though I did the exact same thing
Right.
when I was active duty, but that's another story. Thanks, GM system. Yeah, so I think one of the pivot points for me for LinkedIn specifically was one of my Veterati calls. I had spoken to somebody who I just happened to be actually former at LinkedIn, was not at LinkedIn anymore, but I said, you know what, this guy has a lot of open slots. He keeps saying, you know, oh, anybody can contact me. And so I reached out and I talked to him, and very nice. And then he said, you know, I would love to help you more. I'm not in HR, but I know somebody who is, or who I used to work with, also used to work at LinkedIn. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it because I wasn't targeting LinkedIn and I wasn't targeting anybody. I was in middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. There were no really remote jobs. That just wasn't the thing at the time. And so I said, you know what, it can't hurt to talk to more people, whatever. And so I talked to this person, and you know, she was kind of telling me about her role and what she did at LinkedIn, and you know, how she got into it. And I was talking to her about what I did, and she's like, oh, well, you know, you have so much experience. And I said, yeah, but you know, middle of nowhere doesn't get you, doesn't get you a job when there are no jobs. But we kept in touch. And, you know, one time again, I reached out to her and I said, oh, hey, I'm interested in talking to somebody who works in employee experience. I said, do you know anybody? So she said, well, let me see. I'm not really sure. A couple weeks passed, and then she called back and she said, hey, guess what? I didn't find anybody, but I know of an open role on a team with one of my ex-coworkers. And she explained what the role was, which was this one. And she says, do you want me to ask if they're willing to accept a remote worker? And I kind of like paused for a minute, and I was like thinking about it, and I was like, wait, everyone's telling me I'm not qualified for this kind of a job. But then I was like, you know what? In my head, I was like, wait, don't turn down any offers like this. I said, it wasn't an offer for a job. It was just an offer to see if I could even apply as a remote candidate. And that's when the pandemic started, you know, being full blown, and remote was, you know, becoming the thing, and people were offering it. And so even though the job was tagged to New York, the hiring manager said, yeah, you know, like I'll let her apply, like no big deal. You know, everyone's remote now anyway. And so I ended up applying, and, you know, oh, I have to go back because I totally forgot the part where I went through 4-block and PTLU. So because I had so much help, so I went through that as well. And I was in the inaugural group of PTLU, and as a military spouse, not as a veteran. And it was there also where Susan and Kelly specifically helped me figure out how to translate my resume. I had so many conversations with them and so many run throughs and saying, okay, this is how to set up my resume, and this is how to make it look better. And I would talk to Susan, and I would say, okay, this is what I did. And then in her head, she would like, it was like a little, you know, crank machine, like beep, beep, boop, boop, boop. And she would like spit something out that was totally industry specific. And I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. And I would put it on my resume. And so I started to do that. And so when I got the notice for this position, I was still in the class. And I said to Susan, I was like, I don't want to tell anybody about this, but I'm telling you. And she was like really excited. And then she said, okay, well, let's work through like the job description versus the resume. And so we did that, and we targeted the resume, which I had done for a whole bunch of other positions too, and never heard anything back, but that's another story. So started doing that. And then I got a call from the recruiter saying, you know, we would like to just do an informational interview. And that was more than I'd ever gotten. And so we went through that. And then I went through about 5 or 6 rounds of interviews with different people, from the hiring manager to future coworkers to the manager's manager to the manager's peer. It was like, I was exhausted, totally exhausted. Another thing I did was to prepare for the interview. I just started Googling, you know, common interview questions, and I started writing them out on little Post-its and little index cards, and I would just practice. I would have the question on one side, practice, and give my example and my story on the other side. And I just kept doing that and doing that and doing that. And I had like little Post-its and little index cards all around the screen of my computer, because this was a computer interview, Zoom interview. And so when I had it, there wasn't a single question that they asked me that either wasn't exactly what I had practiced or something that was very related. So it was just a lot of, I think, self-preparation, being able to translate, what I did on active duty, and convincing somebody, because a lot of times it takes convincing from the military because people just don't understand. And, also, I had a protocol job, well, how would I write that one off? And I didn't like write it off necessarily. I actually explained it. Somebody asked me about it and I explained it. And I said, I used that. I used, when I was actually, when I had people under me in the military as well, when I was a supervisor, when I was a manager, to kind of show that not only, have I been on my side where I'm not managing anybody with it, which is this role, but having managed people, I understand, the thought process of managers. So I'm well equipped to coach them and to give them feedback because I've been there myself. And I think that was one of the big things that I think made me stand out in the interview. I think, I mean, to me, it would be because they were looking for somebody who could understand how to coach managers and how to, give advice. And if you've never been in those situations, it's hard to, put yourself in their shoes and to be an effective coach and manager. So we do that a lot in this role. And so, yeah.
Well, and I think also, because I want to also transition to Corey, but something that you also said, you said that you needed to convince them. You also, I think, needed to convince yourself, because if you can convince yourself, then that's going to shine through in any conversation. And I think where I want to go in kind of transitioning to Corey is what, from a recruiter's perspective, so from someone on the back end who has the recruiter platform from LinkedIn, how are they going to find a Harper? What are they looking for? How can they find people? What is it that the veteran or spouse or anybody needs to do to make it so that they are viewed or seen, or again, kind of moving toward that competitive place? So I will actually truly now take myself off the screen, because I know Corey wants to transition and go into like his own mode of sharing his screen. And Harper, we're going to have questions all the way through, so I hope you'll be able to hang and stay with us.
Yep, I just have a hard stop at in an hour and a half of my time.
All right, Corey.
Thanks. Yeah, Harper, I mean, I just love that story of your journey coming to LinkedIn is one that we hear often with military folks that do join LinkedIn, is that the people that are successful in joining a competitive company like LinkedIn is that they're really active in their in getting the role, one, through networks or optimizing their profile or their resume. They're just doing a lot of stuff. So then when it actually counts, they're ready. And that's really the theme throughout yours, is that you started early when you didn't even know about LinkedIn, right? You were using the resources that you had, whether it's 4Block or just Veterati or anything like that, to really start those conversations. And then those conversations help broaden your network. You talk to somebody that was working at LinkedIn, and then they introduce you to somebody. So there's all these different things that really take you from being a candidate to a competitive candidate. And that's really what I want to share with folks today, is like, what's the difference, right? And this information is applicable to any company, as it is with LinkedIn. As you can imagine, in a place like LinkedIn, is that when they open up a role, within a few days, they have hundreds of applicants. And so how is it that a recruiter is going to be able to like sift through all that information? And just to kind of ground the conversation, like, recruiters, their job is to get people in the open requisitions as quickly as possible. So they need to get somebody that's qualified, somebody that's going to do well in that role, be successful as quickly as possible. And they can't view everybody that applies for the role. It's just simply, they don't have the capacity to do that. And so like in Harper's instance, what I love about this is just how that kind of happens organically. You know, you talk to Dan introduced you to somebody else at LinkedIn, and then that person introduced you to somebody else. That's just kind of how it works, is that you don't know. I mean, it could happen in weeks, like in your case, it could happen in months, it could happen in years, really. But there's people that recruiters are constantly thinking of folks that they, you know, that they've talked to, and they're like, wow, you know, there's a role out there, but maybe this isn't quite a good fit, but I'll wait until there is a good fit. And then, you know, basically you come to mind, and then that's really how it happens. So I'd like to share my screen. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to toggle in between like a quick presentation and actually walking through some of the items on my browser. So let me jump in here real quick, and then we'll get started on talking about all this stuff. So real quick. So can you see my presentation? Good. Okay. So again, really the theme is like how to become a competitive candidate. And really what we want you to do is we want you to be able to rise to the top, because there's going to be a lot of noise, lots of candidates. So how do you make yourself slightly more visible to the next candidate? Because that's all it really comes down to, right? They're not going to interview all the candidates. They're going to interview just a few, and you want to make sure that you're in the bucket of a few. And I'm going to show you some of the ways that you can do that, but also kind of the things that the recruiters are looking at, so that you can optimize your profile accordingly, and give you some tools, strategies, and some tactics on how to do that. So we're going to talk about LinkedIn Recruiter. I'm going to show you recruiter searches, a thing called Recruiter Spotlights, and then the open to work feature if you haven't heard about that. We're going to talk about some profile optimization, so featuring skills, keyword strategies, and then relevant profile information, like making sure that what you have in your profile is going to mean something to the recruiter or the role that you're applying to. And then some in-mail tactics, like how can you reach out to people, what kind of things to message to them, and then having a clear ask. And if we've got a moment, I'll show you the new feature that we have, which is career breaks. And this is really, I think, applicable to the military spouses out there. It's a great feature for all those folks. Okay, so this is what recruiters use. So LinkedIn, Harper, I talked about this. LinkedIn is a business-to-business company. We basically sell tools to businesses so they can find and hire talent. And our flagship product is LinkedIn Recruiter. And basically, it's this really robust filtering system that helps filter out the 800 million LinkedIn members to a talent pool of folks that could fill an open role. And I'm going to show you what LinkedIn Recruiter looks like and how it works. Jumping over to my profile really quickly. I'm going to move this real quick. This is what the recruiter tool looks like. And I'm going to go through a quick search so you can kind of see what a recruiter would do when they're searching for a candidate. So first, they're probably going to start with something like a job title. So let's go with, you know, what Harper's doing. So she's in human resources. And then they're probably going to pick like a location. So let's just go with the San Francisco Bay Area. Hello. And then we can start to do things like some skills. So the skills part's really important, is that these are the things that really start to narrow down the results. So out of the 850 or 800 million members on LinkedIn, just by those two things, the human resource manager for a job title in San Francisco Bay Area, this is when a recruiter's actually searching, they're actively looking for talent to bring on board. This returns 19,000+ results, right? Obviously a recruiter can't get through all that information. So they got to keep digging. So there's probably some very specific skills that they're looking for. And these skills are going to be included in their job description. So this one, it might be like employee relations. They might have leadership. And so on and so forth. So this is like, as you can see, is that as we're adding skills, it starts to go down and down and down. Now, one really cool feature about the LinkedIn Recruiter tool, and this is something that's super important for our veterans out there, is that we actually have this advanced search filter where they can pick the military veteran status. So people with a military background. So that quickly takes like the 13,000 folks down to, let's see here. Sorry. To, why is it not showing? There we go. That 13,000 folks to 246. So again, even this is going to be too many folks for them to go through. Like a recruiter's not going to be able to go through, they could go through 250 profiles, but they're probably not going to, right? Again, you know, they want to get people into their roles as quickly as possible. So they're going to add more skills and whatnot. And then as they add skills, those people who match the most amount of skills. So like you see here for Michael, the skills matches leadership, employee relations. But as they do more skills, the people that have the skills matches rise higher and the results go lower. Now, a thing that, so this is really important. So when you're on your profile, and you've probably talked about this before, is being able to, is highlighting the skills that you do have, making sure that you use all 50 and making sure that they are relevant to the role that you want, right? So for instance, if you're in the military, you probably don't want to have military combat arms or stuff like that if the job outside of the military is not going to be involved in any of those type of skill sets. So you want to be making sure that you're putting the skills for the job that you want. Now, as they continue to look at this stuff, the recruiters are trying to find the easiest way, like who should they reach out to? There's these things called spotlights. And so right here, you have open to work. I'm going to show you how to do that. This is 5 roles held at a company. So this shows that somebody has some consistency. They've been at a company for a long time. This is company follower. This means that they're following LinkedIn, which is a good indication that they're interested in perhaps working at LinkedIn. And then this shows that they have 14 connections that I have. We have 14 shared connections. So I could actually reach out to any one of these connections and learn a little bit more about Michael, or even ask like, hey, can you introduce me to Michael? So this is just like a brief overview of how LinkedIn Recruiter works. But the key takeaway here is that it really works off of keywords. So the skills are just keywords. It even has a keyword section, and then it's just working off of locations and then and job titles. And maybe they don't even put a job titles, but mostly it's focused on keywords. So something that's really important is to understand, how do you get those keywords into your profile? The first thing that we want to do is that we want to signal the open to work. So you go to your profile, right underneath your profile photo, your headline and stuff like that, you come down here and you hit the open to work pencil, and then you can start adding stuff that you want for your open to work. And basically what this does is just signals to recruiters that you're open to a conversation, really. You could put in job titles. I just put in these. You can put in workplaces. I selected those. I live in Portland, Oregon, so I put a job location, Portland, Oregon, and then I can do a start date. I have immediately right here, full-time, whatnot. Now you can, this is the nice feature, is that you can put, all people can see that you're open to work, or you can say recruiters only, and then LinkedIn takes steps to make sure that your open to work status isn't highlighted for the recruiters within your current organization.
Hey, Corey, while you're in your profile, Jason had asked if there was a way to convey that you have no location preferences or multiple location preferences. So I think the question is, are the searches from the recruiters always tied to location in your profile?
No, they're not. So you can actually just leave it open if you want to leave it blank.
Great.
Another great thing that you can do is you can actually add that to your about section. So if you just go down to like the portion of your profile that you can kind of explain your journey and stuff like that, you can just add it in there that you're open to all different locations. Okay. So we've got the open to work on. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we feature the skills that are going to get us caught up in those recruiter searches, right? This is the best thing about your LinkedIn profile, is that it's always on. So like a resume, you have to be active. You got to like give it to somebody and hope they look at it. You add it to a job that you apply for, but LinkedIn, like recruiters can come find you, and you want them to come find you because they're zooming around with opportunity, and that opportunity can come to you. Now, with the skills, you have 50 opportunities to add skills. So you should add all 50. So if you go down to mine, there I have all 50. So all 50 listed. So you've got all these components. So now the way to think about this is that you have 50 opportunities to get caught up in a recruiter search. So you should use all 50. And these things are weighted. So like the more of these skills that show up from a recruiter search, the higher you go up in the rankings. And then in addition to that, you want to do things that kind of game the system, right? Because basically the LinkedIn Recruiter tool that I showed you is scraping your profile for those keywords. So let's think about leadership, right? I have leadership on here, but that's like one hit. That's like one time that it would show up on my profile. But what I've done in my experience area is if you open this up, I have at the very bottom this thing called relevant skills. And these are the skills that I use in my role every single day. And one of them is leadership. And so now it's in my profile twice. And if you go down to, say, the business that we own, relevant skills, leadership, now it's in there again. So LinkedIn's algorithm, the way that it returns searches from the link from LinkedIn Recruiter is it will basically look at how many times those words show up in your platform, because it's trying to decide, okay, these two people have leadership in their profile, but which one's better at it? And it can't really make that determination because it's subjective. But what it does is it goes, well, this candidate over here has it in their profile 18 times. And Corey over here has it in his profile 20 times. Corey must be better at leadership than this next candidate, or this profile is more relevant to the recruiter search. So what I'm doing is I'm adding all these skills in here over and over and over again for every single one of my things that they're literally the skills I use in that role, so that I show up in the rankings higher and higher and higher. I used to, the recruiters, when I was leading the recruiting or the military recruiting program at LinkedIn, the recruiters would be like, damn, Corey, like every time I do a search, you're like the top one, and it's annoying because you already work here. So stop it. And so like, this is because I was gaming the system by doing stuff like this. And quite frankly, they don't even really notice it. So it's not something that people complain about. They just notice that you're always on top. So that's one way to do it. Now, to take this even to the next level is that what Harper talked about is really, going and getting the help and then figuring out how to optimize your resume and your profile, and so that it is relevant to the specific role, right? So this is one of those things where it's like, I often hear military people that be like, I applied to 100 jobs and I didn't hear back from any of them. I'm like, well, that makes sense to me, because it was really hard to think deeply about applying to 100 jobs, right? It's like, let's think about a couple that are very similar and then just really go deep with each one of those and prepare. So you can use LinkedIn to search jobs. You click on jobs, and then it's going to show you, it's going to come up with these jobs, and it's going to make some suggestions to you. I'm going to show you this chief of staff one, and I'm going to show you how to optimize your profile, because a lot of people are going to be like, well, I don't know exactly what to put in my profile. Well, I'm going to show you that. So if I go to this chief of staff one right here, I'm going to take the position overview and I'm going to copy it with the responsibilities, all these words, minimum qualifications, because that's relevant. I'm going to take it and I'm going to paste it into a word cloud. And you'll see here in a second. And then what I like to recommend to people is do this for at least 2, maybe 3, ideally 3 different job descriptions that are very similar. So they're very similar in the skill set that you're looking for, right? So I'm going to go to this other chief of staff role, and I'm going to go back through and I'm going to copy the relevant information. So going through, I'm copying all these words, and I'm going to paste that into my word cloud generator. And then I'm going to do it one more time. So I'm going to look to see if there's another chief of staff role. We've got one right here. I'm going to find the relevant information. I'm going to go through and I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it into this word cloud. And then I'm going to hit visualize. It's basically going to comb through all of those job descriptions, and it's going to tell you the words and skills that they're looking for those type of roles. So obviously for a chief of staff role, one of the big things that these three job descriptions are really looking for, they're looking for somebody that's got communication skills. They're looking for somebody that's got some management skills. They're looking for somebody that's strategic, planning projects. So now this is really pulling out for you very visually and quickly what it is that you need to be highlighting in your profile to be competitive for this role. So this is one of the tools that I think that if just spend a little bit of time in figuring out what is exactly that you're trying to make your profile say about you, so that when people come to your profile, recruiters, when they're looking for somebody to fill a chief of staff role, right? You can be actively applying to those three roles that I just showed you, but there's also other recruiters that are trying to fill chief of staff roles, and they can come find you. And the thing is that being found by a recruiter for an opportunity is great, because a recruiter really wants you to succeed when they've reached out to you in the interview process, right? Again, they want to fill the seats as quickly as possible. They want somebody that's qualified. They've already deemed you as being somebody that's qualified. And the thing is that when they're coming to you, they're kind of putting their own credibility on the line. So they're going to make sure that you're successful in the interview process. So this is just a really good way to signal out to the recruiters what skills that you have, or what skills that you should be communicating on your LinkedIn profile. And I can take some questions about any of this stuff a little bit later. Now, getting back to this, so that is one way to fill out all these skills and whatnot on your profile. The things that I want to highlight that you also want to be careful of is like making sure that the information in your profile is relevant, right? So I'll see people who have education stuff from like maybe high school, and it's like, is that really relevant? Is that going to help the decision maker? Because you don't want to have too much noise in here on like where people went to school. Certifications, like if you have certifications that are relevant to the role, then great, add them in here. If they're not, then I would say maybe you want to skip it. So for instance, I'll see folks that maybe they were a firefighter in the military, and that's great. If they don't want to be a firefighter outside of the military, maybe all those certifications, and maybe they do want to go as a chief of staff, and it has nothing to do with the firefighting industry. Maybe those certifications aren't really relevant. Like it creates noise. When a recruiter looks at their profile, they go, I can't tell if this person's a chief of staff or if this person's a firefighter. And you really want to build your profile for the career that you want, not the career that you had. And so this is really important to make sure that you're just adding in all that relevant information versus just putting like everything that you've ever done into the profile. And this again helps kind of clear out the noise so that when a recruiter comes to your profile, that they can quickly understand who it is that you are as a professional. All right, so we went over what the recruiter search looks like. We also talked about the skills. So having all 50 skills on there, super important component of your profile. And the next thing I want to talk about is in-mail tactics. So like reaching out to people, super important as well. Your profile, the LinkedIn profile that is just the platform is super powerful. And if you aren't doing this already, and it sounds like this is one of the things that Harper that you had done, is that going to search to figure out who it is that you want to talk to, right? So I'm going to use one of these. Let's use Zoom as an example. So if I'm like, hey, I really want to work at Zoom, then let's go ahead and use the search function. So the search function is in the top left hand right here. Hope you all can see that. You just click into it. Now it's not totally intuitive, but you click into the search function and you just hit enter. And it's going to come up with this option right here where you can pick these categories to search. So I'm going to do people. And then I'm going to click this thing called all filters. So if you click all filters, now I can start to search folks. So I'm going to do current company, Zoom, because I'm going to look, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find somebody to reach out to at Zoom to help me get a referral inside of the company for this job, this chief of staff role. Because I'm not going to just apply for this chief of staff role. I'm going to have an internal person give me a referral, kind of like what Harper did, so that you have somebody on the inside that's helping get you to the top of the candidate like heap. So going current company and then past company, I'm just gonna search for vets. Now there might not be a ton, but you can, just search all the different branches. Let's see, you do that. Let's add. And let's throw the Coasties in there too. Oh, where'd you go? There you go. All right. So this is basically, I'm just searching current company, Zoom, past company, military branches. Let's see who comes to the top here. Move this. Sorry, I'm moving the little Zoom things. You probably can see it, but. So great. So this returns 78 people that are at Zoom who were also in the military. So these are like people that, this is where you kind of start. So if it's chief of staff role, you can start to look through here and figure out who might be like one who was in the same branch as me, who maybe works in the area that the role that I'm looking for is. But basically, you've got all these different folks who are military folks who also work at Zoom. So Zoom, like it's letting me know that we're both in the Air Force. This would be a perfect person to reach out to see if you can get an informational interview from them, right? So I'm not connected to Jeff. So something I might do is I might say, hey, connect, and then I'd add a note, be like, hi, Jeff, I'm looking at this role at Zoom. I saw that you and I both served in the Air Force. I would love if I could get a few moments of your time to chat about just what life is like at Zoom for a veteran or something like that. And just making the note personal. The great thing about LinkedIn that a lot of people may not know about is that LinkedIn, the US military community, is one of the most connected and engaged networks. And the reason for that is because, I think it's because my hypothesis is that basically we grow up in an environment where there's mentorship. We're trying to help each other out. We're trying to make everybody better, right? The lift all boats thing. So vets tend to respond very quickly on messages when somebody reaches out to them. And that's fantastic. So just reaching out with a quick note on, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And then being very, very clear about your ask. So I'm reaching out to you. I'd love to learn more about Zoom. And then, maybe in a different email, it's like, hey, this is the specific role. Would you be comfortable connecting with somebody that knows more about this role, or would you be comfortable with submitting a referral on my behalf? And maybe you do that after, you have to kind of feel it out, but maybe you do that after you do have a quick informational interview, 15-minute coffee chat or virtual chat or anything like that. But when you feel comfortable asking for that referral, you definitely should. Our data shows on LinkedIn that you're 10 times more likely to get hired at a company with a referral. And I'll explain why that works. So at LinkedIn, there's a LinkedIn, the talent acquisition org wants people to refer people. And so for all the referrals that go into LinkedIn, they get contacted. Their candidacy gets considered. And that's a lot, that makes it a lot easier for the recruiters. So let's say that this chief of staff role at Zoom opens up, 1,000 people apply. The recruiter can't look at all 1,000, but maybe 10 employees submitted referrals for candidates. So now there's like these 10 referral candidates. I bet you that the recruiter is going to look at all 10 of those. So just immediately you're way more competitive because you've got an in, right? You've got somebody that's kind of championing your candidacy. And sometimes, and I've known this happened at LinkedIn a few times, is that that's the only candidates that the recruiters look at, because they see that those candidates are all competitive. Those candidates could all do the job. And so they basically just start to move them in. So that the recruiter does an informational interview, and then they start moving on to the hiring manager and then whatnot. And then basically the candidate will get interviewed further and then possibly get hired, much like what happened in Harper's instance. So that's really the type of stuff that I wanted to show you. One of the things that I really like about Harper's approach is that Harper was connecting with folks before she actually found the role at Zoom, or before she found the role at LinkedIn. So like connecting with people before, like if you want to work at LinkedIn, then I highly recommend you start connecting with people and having those informational interviews even before there's an open role specifically that you want to apply for, because then you're building those relationships in the org, and it's much easier to reach out to them when it matters, right? Because that's the thing, is you want to do all that preparation ahead of time, have all those conversations, be active ahead of time, so when it matters, then you're competitive and you're able to seize that opportunity when it comes up. So that's the stuff I want to share with you today. Happy to answer any other questions. I think we're going to be taking questions at the end. Please let me know how you want to approach that.
Sure. Well, I will say, while Harper's on there, I can put myself up, but I have Randall Ray had his hand up. So I'm not sure, Randall, if I'm going to allow you to talk. I think I just pressed that. So if you want to ask your question, you can go ahead. Oh, he said that was a mistake. All right. I'll unmute you then, or I'll mute you. All right, so any questions? If you have questions and you want to ask them out loud, you could certainly raise your hand within Zoom, and you can actually talk. I think that's a new Zoom feature as well. And if not, then we will move over to Santiago, who's going to take really what Harper has talked about, what Corey has talked about, and just take it to a different level for you specifically, and how to take some of his advice to really, as he would say, kind of rock your own profile. But Corey, that was really fabulous. And I did also, thanks to Harper, I realized that a lot of the comments I was putting into the chat were going to the host and panelists and not to everybody. So I'll make sure I fix that when we send out the recording. All right. Thanks so much, Corey, and anyone else on, just feel free to keep putting your messages in the chat, and we're going to turn it over to Santiago.
All right. And you know what? One of the things I love about attending LinkedIn classes, even though I'm giving a portion of it today, is there's always so many different strategies that you can employ to maximize your impact here. So Corey, I've been teaching classes on LinkedIn for, I'm going to say almost 8 years now. And I've learned something from you, some different strategies. So thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen now. Lisa, if you can give me a thumbs up to let me know that you're seeing it.
I'm seeing it.
All right. So the first thing I want to have everyone do is I want you to look at my feed. And as you look at my feed, I want you to notice if you can see these reoccurring themes. Most of what you see revolve around veteran employment, veteran advocacy, veteran resources, military spouse employment, advocacy and resources, information involving either community engagement or business development. There is a reason why everything you see here falls in line within that subject matter. It is because I am very selective with the people that I connect with on this platform. So my first piece of advice to everyone here is this. I would like you to start actively seeking out and connecting with 3 types of individuals. First, people that do the job you want to do. Second, people who are in charge of the people that do the job you want to do. And lastly, senior level leaders in the organizations that you want to become a part of. You will notice that when a bulk of your network falls within those 3 categories, your feed will become as valuable to you as my feed is for me. The reason for that, people who do the job you want to do, they are going to share information that fall in line within that industry. They're going to talk about new strategies or technologies that are being employed in their field. They're going to talk about training programs that they've started or completed. They're going to talk about conventions and conferences that they plan on attending. And the more you know what's going on in your field, the better you can stay up to date with what's going on in your industry. And you would be able to either take advantage of that information, or at least you know what's going on. As you connect with senior level leaders, you're going to notice that they tend to share information at a macro level, meaning when their organization is expanding into a new region, when they've been awarded major contracts, when they're opening new offices. And for us as savvy job seekers, when we see that, we know, well, if there's an expansion, an office opening, or a major contract being awarded, they're going to need additional personnel to meet their staffing needs. So if we see that, this is when we start reaching out to our contacts within those organizations and start seeing if they can advocate for us for those roles. Hopefully, we will be able to secure a position before it is even released to the general public. Now, my second piece of advice is this. I would like everyone here at a minimum to log on to LinkedIn at least 3 times a week. And each time you log on, I encourage you to like and comment on at least 3 to 5 people's posts. This activity is going to help you in 2 distinct ways. First, LinkedIn is going to tag you as an active member. And secondly, it is going to draw a higher amount of profile views. So what this will do is if you look off to the right, you're going to see this section where it says who's viewed your profile. Well, this is the amount of people that have viewed your profile in the last 90 days. And I'll explain why you even care about that number. The only way a person can see the extent of your background, all of your training and education, the places that you volunteer at, the recommendations that others have written for you on your behalf, is if they go to your profile. And the more a person knows who you are, what you do, and the character that you possess, the more likely they're going to be comfortable to either recommending you for a role within their organization or connecting you to those within their network. And what you will notice is as you engage in others' content, they are going to start wondering, who is this person either supporting this post that I have shared or even respectfully, maybe debating something that I've shared. Now, if you go to this number and you click on it, it's going to take you to a subsection. And typically, they're going to show you the most recent 5 individuals that have viewed your profile. And if you have LinkedIn Premium, you're going to be able to see pretty much anyone that has looked at you for the last 6 months. Now, this is important because when an employer has a candidate, many times they will go to that candidate's LinkedIn profile to learn more about that individual. So let's say that I applied for a job at, we'll say USAA, and I applied for that job, let's say a month and a half ago. And I see here that Ms. Batu, who works at USAA, viewed my profile 21 hours ago. That's what that is. Well, when I see that, I'm thinking my resume must have done its job, because is it not more likely that my resume reached a decision maker's desk and did its job, which is to get that person interested in learning more about me, and then they look at my profile? Is that not much more viable than someone from a company I applied for randomly stumbling across my profile? In this situation, what I'm going to do is I need to connect with this individual because she has valuable insight in that organization. She's going to help me answer the question, do I even want to work there? And I know that sounds a little weird because if I apply for a job, obviously I want to work there. Well, let me ask you this. If you were to find out a company that you applied for had a toxic work environment, that the person you're going to be reporting to was a micromanager, that the colleagues you're going to be working alongside were a bunch of backstabbers, that the clientele you were going to be serving was difficult to work with, would you still want to join that organization? I would argue most people would say, there's no way I would ever want to introduce myself to that type of environment. But sad to say, more often than not, we find out a place has a toxic work environment, not before we accept the job offer, but after. So how can we avoid that situation? It is by talking to people who work there or whom used to work there. And Ms. Batu, she currently works there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to her profile and I am going to try to connect with her. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through her profile, and I want to see as many things as possible that her and I have in common. The more you have in common with an individual, the more likely they're going to want to connect with you. The first place that I'm going to draw my eyes to is a section right next to connections, because if her and I had someone in common that we both knew, I would be able to see it under mutual connections. If you know somebody that knows a person that you want to connect with, it is imperative that you leverage that connection. Let's say that I knew Jane Doe, who knew Miss Batu. What I would do is I'd reach out to Jane and I would say, good afternoon, Jane. I see that you know Miss Batu, who works at USAA. Can you please do an introductory email for me? Because she works in an organization I would like to learn more about. And if Jane does facilitate that introduction, Miss Batu is now not only more likely to want to connect with me, she's more likely to want to help me. Not necessarily because I'm this great guy. It is because by helping me, she's doing a favor for a friend. The next thing I'm going to look at is her experience. I want to see if we've worked in similar industries and similar organizations or held similar roles. The next thing I'm going to be looking for is I want to see if Miss Batu is a prior service member. The next best thing to knowing an individual is to see that they are a prior service. Most veterans, when put in a position to help out a fellow veteran, will take advantage of them. They may not be able to help get you the job, but at least they're able to provide you insight to give you a competitive advantage. The next thing I'm going to look at is their education. One of the closest things the civilian world will ever have to the strength, bond, and unity that we have within our military community is their alma mater. There are some individuals out there, you mentioned that, hey, I'm a fellow SDSU alumni or a Michigan State alumni. Next thing you know, that connection is there. You start reminiscing about how when things were so tough, when you were going to college, that you had to go to the bowling alley and eat their #1 fish and chips selection because that's all you can afford to eat until you got your next stipend. Then I'm going to scroll further down and I'm going to go and see if this individual volunteers anywhere. Like, let's say that Miss Batu volunteered at the Big Brother, Big Sister program, and I volunteer at the local YMCA. What we have in common in that situation is, although we support different organizations, the communication would be different. I mean, the community that we serve is the same, which would be youth. The next thing I'm going to look at is the interest. If Ms. Batu was in any groups, I would want to see what group she is a part of, because I want to see where individuals like her congregate. In 4Block, we focus on a networking focused job search strategy. And we acknowledge that we have a finite amount of time, energy, and resources to do that. So if I am going to take time to go to a networking event or to go to a conference, I want to make sure that I am in an environment where if opportunities do appear, that those are opportunities I would actually be able to be interested in. So I take all of this information and I'm going to use this in my connection request. Now, because Ms. Batu and I, we are so far apart in our networks, I have to find her connection request, not here where it says message. I have to click on more, and then I have the option to connect. Please, if a person is worth connecting with, make sure that you send a message alongside that connection request. A person is much more likely to connect with you if they understand what your intentions are. I teach my clients a 3-tier approach to their connection request. It begins with the good old-fashioned greeting of the day. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and then I will address it to Ms. Batu. That simple action is going to let her know that I am a real person connecting to her in real time. The second tier is to lead off with what you have in common. Now, in this situation, the only thing her and I have in common is that she viewed my profile. So I'm going to say, good morning, Ms. Batu. I see that you recently viewed my profile and you work at USAA. If she was a prior service member, I would say, good morning, Ms. Batu. I see that we are both Army veterans and you recently viewed my profile. Let's say that we had more than 4 or 5 things in common. I'm only going to use 2 points of commonality and then the statement that she recently viewed my profile. Because if I add more, it's going to get very unwieldy. The final tier is a statement of action. I would like to connect with you, set up a 15-20 minute phone call where I can, and then let her know what you would like to learn. And I caution you, do not say, I would like to talk to you about job openings at USA. If I do that, the most likely thing she's going to do is send me to the USA job board. And that is the last place I want to end up. I do not want to be simply another candidate. What I want to do is I want to be the type of person that Ms. Batu is willing to vouch for. And that is going to take more than just an invitation to connect. So by me telling her, I would like to connect with you, set up a 15-20 minute phone call to learn more about what the company culture is like at USAA, this is going to open that conversation up. Much like what Harper said when she was doing those informational interviews, that's what we're doing here. So I am going to try to get Ms. Batu on the phone, and I'm going to try to have her do most of the talking. I want to learn about her own transition out of the military or her experience growing in this industry. And when she finishes her part of the conversation, what do you think she's going to do next? End the call? Or is she going to ask me about my background? And now I'm going to be able to share with her about my education, about my experience, and how I am interested in getting into an industry that USA is in. By doing this, we start establishing a rapport as well as a professional relationship with that individual. And the more she knows who I am, what I do, and the type of character that I possess, the more likely she would be willing to advocate for me. Maybe not at this juncture, but potentially in the future. Now, another thing about the Who's Viewed Your Profile tab is that this is a golden opportunity for you to expand your world of work. For example, what better way to learn about what a customer success manager is and what they do than by talking to someone who has that role? And I love sharing this. Like, the world of work is so immense that there may be industries out there, companies or roles that exist that you would thrive in, that you have no idea are even out there. And this is where I share a little bit about my background, where if you would have asked me back in 2011, when I was just getting back from my Afghan tour and said, what is the likelihood of you working for a VSO? My response to that question would have been, what is a VSO? I had no idea an industry existed that supports the military community. And it was only through my own career exploration that I stumbled across this type of work, fell in love with it. And here I am 13, almost 14 years later, continuing to serve this community I hold so dear. So if you see someone who works in an organization that you would like to learn more about, like I see Corey here, works at LinkedIn. I'm interested in learning more about that. I can reach out to Corey and say, good afternoon, Corey. I see that you recently viewed my profile and you work for LinkedIn. I would like to connect with you, set up a 15-20 minute phone call to learn more about what your organization does. Or, good afternoon, Jared. I see that you recently viewed my profile and you're a customer success manager. I would like to connect with you, set up a 15-20 minute phone call to learn more about what a day in the life of your role is like. Very, very valuable opportunities we're able to take advantage of from this section alone. I'm going to take us back to the Home tab, and I want to spend a few moments talking about the header section. It is critical that you have a photo of yourself in professional attire. Now, professional attire does not mean in your dress uniform. Professional attire is also a very subjective word as well, because what professional is for one industry may be vastly different for another. Like, let's say that I was a CNC machinist. Does the guy in that photo look like a CNC machinist? I would argue no. And with a single photo, I have now distorted the professional image that I'm trying to create on this platform. Should you ever have a question of what people wear in your industry, all you have to do is go back to that handy dandy search bar. Let's say that I am a financial advisor or a financial planner. I'm going to type in financial planner in the search bar, and then I'm going to go to the tab that says people. And now I have a group of people that do the job that I want to do. I see that many of them are wearing ties or jackets. So this is what I'm going to make sure I in turn am wearing. Look like the type of person that does the job you claim you do. Another thing that is important to be wearing, and please forgive me because it is a little cheesy, but you need to be smiling. You need to have a big smile because you have to think about what that simple action portrays about you as an individual. Someone who is smiling looks like a person who is optimistic, who's energetic, the type of person that others would want to spend 40 hours plus a work week with. I want to draw your attention right next to my name. I have an acronym there, CPRW. I place that acronym there strategically because those in my industry, when they see that, they know it stands for Certified Professional Resume Writer. They know that for me to even petition to take that exam, I had to work in my field for a minimum of 5 years. And to earn that certification, I had to pass a 3-series test scoring at 80% in each category to be able to earn that certification. What this does is it gives me credibility. So if you are a project manager and you have that PMP, that needs to be up there. If you're in logistics and you have that Lean Six Sigma, black belt, yellow belt, green belt, that needs to be up there because it shows others the level of expertise you have. Right under that, I have the position that I am in. I am a workforce professional. Do you notice how I do not have, or I don't identify myself as a Jedi or a guru or what are those people that take folks up Mount Everest? It's not a shawarma. It's a, all right, those folks, right? I am not going to wait. A Sherpa, yes, thank you, Jason. As Corey mentioned, LinkedIn is a keyword-centric platform. So I am not going to waste an inch of valuable real estate on my header, nor throughout my profile that does not speak to my ability to do the job I claim I can do. Now, what about those of us that are in a career pivot or those of us that are just getting out of the military? It is imperative that you identify yourself as who you are, not who you were. In the Army, I was a platoon sergeant in a medium truck company. I guarantee you that no recruiter is ever going to type in platoon sergeant to find a workforce professional. Now, if we have never done the job we are pivoting to, it is still important for you to identify yourself as that type of professional because we all had to have a day one. Before you became that soldier, that Marine, that sailor, that Coast Guard, that airman, you stood on a yellow footprint. And when the moment you took that footprint, that is when you became that individual. The same holds true with your new profession. We all have to take the step on to those yellow footprints to become that person. So now is the time for you to start realigning your profile to speak to the roles that you are targeting and to downplay the roles that you are in. The last 2 words that you will see on my header is my military affiliation. If you do not have that up there, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. You have to think what those two words do for you. They help connect you not only to those within your branch of service, not only those that have ever worn the uniform. You have to think of every military spouse, every military significant other, every mother, father, brother, aunt, uncle, sister of someone that has served. There's a bond that we have there. And there are individuals that actually want to do more than say thank you for your service. They want to give you an opportunity. And if you don't identify yourself as that veteran or part of the military community, because I also encourage military spouses and spouses of veterans to share that, because those that want to help you can only do that if they know that you are part of our community. The last thing that I want to mention in regards to the home tab is to encourage you to share posts as well. And LinkedIn makes it very easy to share posts. You can add photos, create videos, you can write articles. They make it so easy to get content out there. There are 3 subject matter that I would like you to focus on. First, anything that has to do with your professional development. Second, anything that has to do with your community engagement. And lastly, anything that has to do with your industry. If you stick to those 3 topics, what you are going to do is further redefine and establish the professional development or the profession that you are in, and you're going to be able to avoid potential backlash, potential, what is they call it, cancel culture. I'll show you an example of a professional development post. Now, LinkedIn has that same feature that many other social media platform has, which is to use the @ sign, where you can put the @ sign and tag a company or personnel or people. So here, when I graduated from Michigan State, I just finished putting the last period on the last sentence on the last paragraph for my final capstone project for my master's program, and then I tag Michigan State. So that means whoever is managing the Michigan State LinkedIn site will get a ping saying Michigan State has been mentioned. And then I acknowledge those that acted as my mentors, my counselors, the folks that I would take me out for a beer because I was overwhelmed at school. I included them, giving them credit for their impact on my ability to finish this program. I then included the organizations that supported me, that added additional resources, so that way I was able to complete this program. Unsurprisingly, here's Forblock. This one post generated over 5,600 views. So big whoop, what does this mean? This means that there's over 5,600 individuals that saw I started and completed a rigorous educational program at a reputable college, that I willingly shared credit for this accomplishment, and that I am sharing the resources that are out there. So I'll ask you, do you think an employer would want to hire someone that does not rest on their laurels? Someone that is actively seeking ways to improve their skill sets and their abilities? Someone that, if put on a team or put on a program, that is likely to share credit because that's the type of character that they possess? When you share posts, people are able to see the type of character that you possess, how driven you truly are. We are now going to go on talk about the My Network tab. Now, this area is where, when people are trying to connect with you, this is where they're shown. And I will be honest, one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone tries to connect with me and they don't tell me why. And I only have 2 options. I can either ignore or accept their requests. And typically I get asked, well, Sonny, shouldn't I accept everyone that tries to connect with me, right? The larger my network, the better. And I have to caution them. That is the wrong mentality to have when it comes to networking. A quality network will always trump a quantity network. So then I get asked, well, does this mean that I should ignore everyone that tries to connect with me without a message? And I still caution them, because not everyone has gone through a LinkedIn training before. So what I show them is this little trick. if you go to where it says see all, a new feature appears. I am able to message this person, and this is not using in-mail credit. This is not using LinkedIn Premium. And the message I send out is this: thank you for requesting to connect. How can I help you? I then give that individual 5 business days to respond. If they fail to respond within that time frame, I will ignore them, because their lack of activity tells me they're probably a garbage contact. And I know that sounds harsh, but let's look at what happened here. This person looked at your profile, saw something of value, and tried to connect with you. So how does it make sense when you try to engage them in a conversation that they do not respond in a timely manner? What that tells me is that they are more focused on the quantity network and not the quality. Or if someone initiates a conversation with me trying to sell me something, again, I'm going to ignore the request, because I am not on this platform to be a consumer. I am here to build mutually beneficial relationships. I am here to collaborate, not to be the next sale. And if you use this methodology, this will help you build that quality network. However, I will acknowledge this method is not foolproof. There may be times when you still connect with someone and then you later regret it. Should you find yourself in that situation, all you have to do is go under where it says manage my network, click on connections, go to that individual, click on these 3 dots, and you're able to remove them. Like every other social media platform, they do not get notified that you dropped them, and now you are able to carry on your merry way. LinkedIn finds multiple ways for you to connect with others. And right under where it says add personal contacts, this is a way that LinkedIn is going to assist you finding people that you already know. What you're able to do is input your email address there, and you are going to give LinkedIn access to the contact list off of that email address. And it's going to show you a list of individuals from that contact list that are already on LinkedIn. And there, you're able to just check a box and find those individuals that you want to connect with and build out that network with people you already know. Another way LinkedIn helps you connect with others is in an area that tends to get overlooked, which is the area right below the invitations. This is LinkedIn's way of helping you find people. Usually it starts off with the place that you most recently worked at, but another area that is valuable is when LinkedIn finds people who attended the colleges that you've already attended. This is why it's so important that under the education section to put in the colleges that you've been a part of, because every one of these individuals I have something in common with. However, this is an opportunity for me to expand my network. For example, if I wanted to learn more about the interim director of the military and veteran programs at SDSU, I can reach out to Elisa and say, connection request, good afternoon, Elisa. I see that we are both SDSU alumni and you currently hold this role. I would like to connect with you and learn more about what those responsibilities are like. Another thing, when you fill out your profile, you tell LinkedIn the type of industry you're interested in. And LinkedIn is going to tell you these are some of those individuals. This section right here is a treasure trove of people that do the job you want to do, that are in charge of the people that do the job you want to do, senior level leaders, organizations that fall within that industry. There it is. It lays before you. I know that Corey mentioned the job tab, but I have been in the workforce development space for going on 14 years. So when I make this claim, this is not just coming out of anywhere. I firmly believe that LinkedIn is the best job search engine out there, hands down. And it's not because of these simple features of being able to put in a job title, being able to set up job alerts. There's even a few other sites where you can get salary information and skills assessment. What sets LinkedIn apart is this. Let's say that I was interested in this role at Deloitte. I am able to see in the blink of an eye if I know anyone there. In this situation, I do not have to build advocates. I have 14 advocates already in that organization. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this position and I am going to comb through this posting. I want to make sure I meet at least 75 to 80% of what they're asking for, because the last thing I would ever want to do is put my network in the awkward situation of having to tell me, hey, brother, love you to death, but you don't qualify for this role. Now, after seeing I do meet around 75 to 80% of what they asked for, that tells me I would be at least competitive for the role. I'm going to click on these contacts and I want to see if I know anyone there. Who are these individuals? I'm going to lead off with the senior most individuals, because these individuals have more sway and authority within that organization. So I would probably start off with Michael Lubert, because Mike, well, he used to be my boss back in the day. So he and I, we know each other very well. I'm going to reach out to Mike and I'm going to start off with a little bit of small talk, because it would be kind of rude for me to say, hey, Mike, can you get me a job at Deloitte? Right? Kind of sounds a little, I don't know. I'm going to talk to him a little bit about his sons, because he has two really, really rambunctious sons. And then I'm going to ask him if he knows anything about that role. I'm not going to ask for him to advocate for me yet. I'm not going to ask for him to look over my resume yet, because I don't even know if I want that job yet. Like, what if he tells me, oh, shoot, that's the third time this year that job's been posted? Well, that high level of turnover does not tell me that that is the type of opportunity I want to take advantage of. Or what if he tells me, oh, that is a newly developed role. We were awarded a new contract, so this is the first time we are bringing this position within the organization. If I have that intel, that's going to impact the way I write my resume. I'm going to highlight how I've stood up positions in the past, how I've created standard operating procedures, how I have a background in training and development, because for that hiring manager, that information is going to be more valuable than just saying, I've done the job in the past. Now, after I've determined that I want the role, then I'm going to send my resume over him, ask for his advice. And then when I am ready to apply, I'm going to ask Mike if he can put in a good word for me, or if he can hand deliver my resume to that decision maker. Now I'm going to say, hey, brother, thank you so much for all the help that you've given me. If you're able, can you please share my resume with the decision maker? And if not, if you could put in a good word for me, I'd greatly appreciate it. And thank you again for all you've done. Some companies prohibit that level of intervention. So by me making that statement, it gives him the out, saying, oh man, I really can't do that. But if all Mike does is go to that employer, that manager, and say, hey, keep an eye out for this application. I know this guy, really good employee or a really good guy. If that's all he does for me, he gives me a huge competitive advantage over everyone else, because I have now been vouched to for a senior leader, from a senior leader. Now, best case scenario is when you know someone there. But it is unrealistic. It is unrealistic for me to think I will always know someone there. So LinkedIn gives us the ability to see if someone from a school I attended went there. And I am also able to see if someone from a company that I worked at also worked there. And most importantly, so long as you put the military branch that you were a part of in your work experience, then you will be able to see if there are prior service members from your branch of service that work in that organization, which again, the next best thing to knowing someone is to see that they are a fellow sailor, soldier, Marine, or airman. Now, there's one more thing that I want to show you before we get kicked, before we draw to an end, which is the power of LinkedIn groups. So to go to the group tab, all you have to click is on the work widget, go to where it says groups, and this is where you will be able to find the groups that you are part of. Just like there are people that I encourage you to connect with, there are groups that I encourage you to join. First, groups that are focused on any school that you've been a part of. Second, groups that are focused on the industry that you want to get into. Third, groups that are focused on your branch of service, and lastly, veteran and military spouse focused groups. One of the ones that I want to highlight is a Veteran Mentor Network. This one group has over 163,000 members. And in order to join this group, you have to be willing to support, inspire, and inform military, their spouses, and veterans as they plan to establish and achieve their life and career goals. This is a sea of goodwill. You can share posts within this group and say, good afternoon, everyone. I am new to the Veteran Mentor Network. I am transitioning out of the Army in the next 3 months. I'm looking for opportunities in this industry, within this region, making a salary around this price point. Any advice, guidance, or resources would be greatly appreciated. And then you just let this group do its work. Now, 163,000 members, that's amazing. But who are these people? If you click where it says see all, you now get a list of these individuals. Now, 163,000 members, again, that's great, but I don't know about you all. I don't have the time, energy, or ability to comb through 163,000 members. What I want to do is I want to target people that are in positions of influence. For example, let's say I'm a CEO and I see the value that you can bring to my organization. Do you think I have the authority to create a role for you? I'd argue yes. Or if there was a position that is already available in the organization, do you think I have the ability to influence the hiring decision? Once again, I would argue less. Yes. And let's say, again, I don't have the budget. I don't have any available openings. Do you think I know a few other CEOs in my industry? Well, look what happens when I go to search members and I type in CEO. You now have a list of CEOs that are in a group that is here to support, inspire, and assist military, their spouses, veterans as they plan to achieve their life and career goals. Not only that, I am able to message them within this group. Again, this is not using InMail credits. This is not using LinkedIn Premium. And what I'm able to do is to send a message out. Good afternoon, David. I see that we are both veterans and part of the Veteran Mentor Network. I would like to connect with you, set up a 15-20-minute phone call to seek your advice and guidance on how I can improve my marketability in your industry. Now, let's say I reach out to him. Let's say I reach out to 50 CEOs and none of them respond to me. What has changed? Nothing. I am in the same exact position I was before I sent those messages out. But can you imagine if just one of those CEOs respond and they say, you know what, Sonny, I got some time next week. And I get that individual on a call and I build that rapport, the impact that that can have in my career search. Not only am I able to do that within this group, I can do that in any group that I am a part of. So that is some of the tips, tricks, and strategies that I wanted to share with you. I'll go ahead and surrender my time back to Lisa.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Santiago and Corey. I'm going to put you, I hope you have maybe 5 more minutes. I know we went over and I'm so sorry about that, but it's just been such a great conversation. I want to go through, and obviously this recording will be available to everyone that's on today, but I want to go through a few of the questions that I saw tracking in the chat just to make sure if we can answer them, great. And if not, I'll make sure everybody gets those answers. So Amy Sue asked originally, now let me see if I can find that one. Is there a way to upload resumes but not share them with the general public? So that was, I think, during Corey, that may have been during your conversation.
You can upload your resume on your LinkedIn profile, but it would be featured.
It would be.
It would be
Okay.
featured, yeah.
Okay, so then the answer to that is no, there's not a way to upload your resume and then not share it with the general public. Okay, let's see. John Wall had a question, and that was, let me scroll back up. Can you revisit how to be more prominent, or what is the best practice when rendering your experience on your landing page?
I can take that. I believe the question is around just highlighting your experience on your page. My recommendation is a couple things that you can do. One is explaining what it is that you did in the job in the day-to-day. but making sure that the experience area actually has information in it. You can cut and paste the bullets that are in your resume so that it's coherent between the two, but making sure that that's filled out is the best way. But also, like in your military, like as you like PCS or move places, keep adding those different jobs on your thing, because it shows the career progression. So every time you add it and the dates align, so like if you were in June to June, or when you PCS, then it'll show career progression. So those are really good ways to stand out.
Yeah, it's definitely, I didn't even think about that until I saw you show that. And then Jason asked, I don't see many folks using the video option in their profile pic. Is that frowned upon or just not known about? And that's something I don't know that I knew about, that there was a video option for your profile.
Yeah, you can do a quick little video. It's not frowned upon. I think it's a really great way to show a little bit of personality, but also if you have a name that people find difficult to pronounce, this is a great way to, you can also use the pronounce feature on LinkedIn, but this is a great way for them to hear you say it.
That's a great idea. And then I know there was a question, I think from Shavande, Santiago, the 3 types of posts that you talk about sharing. I was trying to actually get those in the chat, and then I was just, as usual, I was just listening to you.
No worries. So it's professional development to show others what you're doing to advance yourself and your skill set. The second is community engagement. So where are you volunteering? And then the last one is industry specific, to show that you are a master of the subject matter that you're in charge of.
Great. Fabulous. Okay, I think that was it. There was one last question that came in. Is there a way to get a list of the skills shown to have in the profile? So Corey, the skills that you showed in your profile, that was the additional to the list of the 50 skills that are highlighted in LinkedIn, correct?
The skills. So yeah, I highlighted them in my skills section, but then I just added them to my experience area.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, I know, like I said, I always hate going over, but it was what a fabulous discussion, and great, truly suggestions that people can take action on. And I think that's, to me, one of the biggest takeaways is networking is not, yes, it's about the numbers, it's about being consistent, it's about being direct, it's about being thoughtful, but it's also about taking action. And the passive job seeker is not going to be the one that's going to be the one that stands up, or that shines through, especially on LinkedIn. It's going to be that active job seeker. The other thing that I think was a very big takeaway, at least for me, that I hope was also for the group, is that LinkedIn should not be, because we talk in Fort Block a lot about our master resume and then targeted resumes. LinkedIn should not be your master resume. LinkedIn is not the holding place for everything that you've done throughout your career, every single thing. It's really to be honed in more similar to kind of a targeted resume, but maybe targeted industries, so that people that are looking for you, or people like you, are seeing what they need to see, and that it's your job as the active LinkedIn profile user to eliminate a lot of that noise. So for me, I mean, those were just some amazing takeaways. And I just want to thank you. Any parting words from the two of you before I let you go 10 minutes late?
No, I'm good. Thank you again for letting me give my little piece.
You're awesome, Santiago. Corey, anything from you, any parting words, or one last some words of advice?
No, I mean, I just really appreciate the opportunity, but don't hesitate to reach out to me if you've got any questions. Connect with me. And happy to continue the conversation. So thanks, everyone.
If anyone's going to connect with you with a message that is thoughtful. I did see, Santiago, as you were showing, Jason, that was participating, also sent you a nice message in your email. So you'll have that to look forward to. All right. Well, as always, everyone on this call has my contact information. Please do not feel free to reach out if we can be of any additional assistance. This audio and video will be made available likely sometime tomorrow. So I'll get it out to everybody as soon as it's available. But Corey, again, I cannot thank you enough, and LinkedIn, truly, for the partnership that we have on behalf of Fort Block and Santiago. You're just a blessing. All right. Thank you so much, and everybody have a great weekend.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye-bye.